Let's start, Mahima.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this lovely Saturday afternoon. And I hope this webinar leaves you with enough food for thought for the weekend. Today, we are discussing why digitizing your school is a must. Something that has been a survival skill that is being needed by the education ecosystem in the wake of the past recent events. I'm glad to share that we've received registrations from all over the world. So, thus it's safe to say that it is an area of common interest across the globe. We have with us today Madam Urvashi Warman, Principal, Palace School, Jaipur, Dr. Deep Khare, Principal, Jodhamal Public School, Jammu, Naman Kandoi, Vice Chairman, Mayoor School, Jaipur, and the panel is being moderated by Rahul Singh, Senior Director, Product Manager, Teachmint. I thank the esteemed panelists for taking time out to be a part of this webinar. Before I hand it over to Rahul, there's a small request. I'll urge all of you to put your questions in the Q&A box, and you can very well introduce yourself in the chat, and the discussions can happen over the chat. And I'll request the panelists to take up the questions if possible whenever during the webinar. Over to you, Rahul. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Mahima. A very good evening to all the panelists and attendees. My name is Rahul Singh. I work at Teachmint Technologies and I am the moderator of this session. First of all, I want to express my deepest thanks to each one of the panelists for being here on a weekend. I know your weekdays are super busy with school operations and weekends must be for family. So thank you again for taking out the time. Today, we are discussing a very important topic which has the potential to fundamentally transform education in India. Over the last decade, everyone knows there has been a wave of digitization in India across all sectors: payments, government, commerce, media, and almost all aspects of society and industry are being impacted positively with the adoption of technology. In fact, according to a leading consulting and research company, the digital economy can contribute up to 20% or 1 trillion US dollars of India's projected $5 trillion economy in the next few years. So why should schools, who are the backbone of education in India, should stay back in this revolution? It's very important that we focus on rapid digitization of more than 15 lakh schools in India. And as someone who's playing a very small part in building the digital infrastructure for schools, I am quite optimistic as I see thousands of school leaders adopting softwares like Teachment to join the dream of building a digital India. We are quite grateful to have few such school leaders with us today who are pioneering digitization in India. Without further ado, let's begin this discussion and hear from our esteemed panelists around why digitization is essential to school progress. My first question is for Naman Kandoi sir, and we will start with the fundamental question of what is school digitization? Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Rahul, for opening the question to me. And I think I think I'm well equipped to answer this, not just for schools but also for higher education. And I want to define what digitization at schools is, as I understand it. Now, I would request the fellow panelists to add their experience to it as well once I conclude with my bit. But here we go. So, as I see it, schools currently they look at digitization along three separate prongs. The first one is an ERP, a resource planning software. So people use it as a student information system. They use it to progressively track the student's life cycle at the school. Then there is a CRM, which is a customer relationship management system, but schools use it to manage their admission process. They use it to handle all the inbound and outbound lead generations. And lastly, we have a learning management system where a teacher and a student can interact and share resources to ensure that no child is left behind and every student has access to the most current and important information on time. So far, how schools use it is very operational heavy. I think it is more of an administrative strategic decision than a truly transformational experience for a school. And I'll break this up into two major components. The first component is all the good things that school who are adopting digitization, the reasons why they primarily do it. The first one is to go paperless. So schools have to maintain records for multiple years. Schools have, a large number of stakeholders with parents, students, teachers, and other external members of the society. So an ERP, or some schools are handling thousands and thousands of admission forms. So ERP and CRMs help schools go paperless and become much more efficient with their data storage, and they can retrieve this data much later, also, and sort of um, ease the entire process of sharing information with all the key stakeholders. So I think mostly the decision to go digital is for convenience, is to go paperless, and to have efficient data storage and retrieval. Now, the other aspect where I feel schools need to plan much better in how to go digital, what particular softwares and technologies to adopt, and how to roll it out and implement it. So, firstly, with digitization, all our data is naturally digitized. So that gives us a lot of leverage for potential data analytics. Now, I don't see schools really looking at the reports or generating a lot of reports that a ton of these softwares offer. Uh, it's mostly, driven by uh, the, the client managing sort of team at the software provider's end, that here we have this data, this is an automatically generated report, this will help you as a principal or as an administrator make a better decision. So a lot of the data analytics is driven by the software provider and is not really sought after by principals and administrators and promoters themselves. And this leads me to the second issue, that a lot of schools are adopting digitization for convenience and for parity with other schools. There is no clear plan of action. Schools need to ask, going digital, what data analytics, what data points do I need to generate to help me make better decisions for my students, for my team in the future? So I don't see a clear plan that schools have, that once I go digital, once I have all those digital data points, how am I going to make better decisions as an entity? So data analytics and poor visibility of what they need 5 years down the line from all this historic data is something that school leaders need to think a little more about. And finally, what digitization can really help a school with is having agility as an institution, as an organization. Schools tend to have a lot of inertia in their operations, a lot of inertia in the way they operate and function. So old practices are difficult to let go of, and new practices and radical ideas are slow in adoption. And digitization can really accelerate the pace at both ends. So I feel school leaders need to look at digitization as an enabler to become a more agile organization, a more agile service provider to a society. And for that, again, it ties back to having a clear plan on how you are going to use your digital data and what analytics you truly need to drive better decisions at your organization. So two things, again, I'll just sum it up. Great call on going paperless, ease of use and storage, efficient storage, etc. But we need to start thinking about how to leverage this data to make better decisions, and not simply have a dashboard on reporting who came late and how many teachers are present today and how many students have paid their fees. We need to go a bit beyond that, because tech suites like what Teachmint is doing, so they offer a wealth of sort of features embedded in their portals that school leaders can really, really gain an upper hand with. So that's my take on it. And I'd like to hear thoughts from the other panelists as well.
I
Thank you.
completely agree with you, Naman. I think what you have said is very true. Uh, Schools need to go digital. They are going to digital, but they really have not thought about a long term pathway where all the digital data that comes in. But I think it's not that bleak. Schools are using data to enhance their performances. Now, if you're talking about hardcore ERP data, it's a different thing. But when you talk about the best part about how data is going to help is because it saves so much of time. Today, if a school leader wants to understand what has been the graph of the school's performance over 5 years, I think 3, 4 years down the line, you would have had to have ten people draw out information from 10 different sources and then put the whole thing together. It would require 5 days as such before you could arrive at a solution. But now it's just a matter of couple of minutes and you have the graph in front of you. So again, this would be, it becomes a very powerful tool to plan. But as you rightly said, people must know where and when to use it and how to use it effectively. That is another story altogether. So, in a lot of points, I agree with you. That's a fact. It has to be used effectively.
Thank you so much, Naman sir, for putting it so eloquently and structuring it out, and Urvashi ma'am for those wonderful thoughts. I want to stay on this for a couple of more minutes because understanding what is digitization is quite important for going further in the discussion. Deep sir, any perspective from your end on this? Sir, you're muted. You just have to unmute. Deep sir, are you able to unmute?
I could do that. I could do that.
Great.
I have to go back in my times. I remember 1999. I was in Delhi for something, IPCSM meeting. And Professor K.S. Dhawan, a teacher in a Mira Model School, first ISO school of the country, he showed me how one can teach physics by using computers. And over 99. And somehow he shared the software with us. So my connection with digitization goes till that 23 years from today. And I know what wonders I could do because I had that great tool in my hand. And in last 20 plus years, I have seen how the school from paper, they become paperless. The decision making, the flow of information, inferring information has become very, very simple. And I don't think we have to talk about digitization of schools. The whole country is digitized. That if any person having a mobile in his hand is digitized, basically. Okay, so this is what my take basically on it. But I have something more to share. As a teacher and principal, I look more on the side of learning outcomes of the children. For me, the working on the children is first priority. My second priority is communication with the parent, fee collection, and whatnot. My first hand task is to look after the learnings of the children. And digitization has brought revolution in that aspect, if done properly and rightly. Okay, so when I get a chance, I'll speak more about it. Please.
Great, great. Thank you so much. I think the one theme coming out of it is that while it's important to understand what is digitization, it's also important to figure out what value can it add for you. Which brings to my second question, which Urvashi ma'am already touched upon a little bit. How data that used to take days to churn out is now at the fingertips of school administrators. So, ma'am, what I want to ask you is how can school digitization ease the burden on every parent, teacher, and management? What are the different perspectives that people should know here?
I think when we talk of easing the burden, the first point which strikes me here is the burden is eased only if you have ease of access, number one, and if you know how to access. So, a basic knowledge of accessing the digital tools is a must. If that is not there, then it is not increasing, lessening the burden, it's increasing the stress quotient. So that is what the first point is, that you have to have the required training to use the digital tools which are available in plenty. And of course, you have to have access to it. When this is, I'm referring to the chat we had before we began, that with the way the internet is across in our country, there are places which have good access, there are places which are still not touched. So if we are talking about a digital transformation, it is definitely on its way, but we still have a long way to go. So I think Prime Minister Modi ji has just launched 5G, and so things may turn up looking better, and maybe even the far-flung areas would come in the ambit, as Dr. Deep Khare was saying. Jammu is still struggling, and they are still struggling to find their place over there. So talking about how we save time and how it lessens the burden, for sure, in a lot of areas, especially where we're talking about the teaching learning process is concerned. Digital access has revolutionized the space of teaching and learning completely, totally. And I think it's one of the plus points of COVID, that it just threw us in the ocean and we had no choice but to swim across and to train ourselves to start learning these tools. um, Thanks to digitalization, I feel the VUCA world, that's your volatility, uncertainty, and complexity, ambiguity, I think it is fast turning into another form of VUCA, which is, I would equate it with vision, understanding, clarity, and agility. So we spoke about agility right now. So that is what I feel now we are coming from that VUCA. We are shifting to this VUCA. I mean, look at the way teaching learning has completely changed. We are now entering into the space of virtual reality, augmented reality. The other day, I had the good fortune of entering the NCRT office in Delhi, and I was like so impressed. They've got this huge lab coming up which is working on virtual reality or augmented reality and how to bring augmented reality down to the schools through the NCRT textbooks. So that was like a wow moment for me because I happened to enter the labs and they had these very fancy, gears that we could wear. And then suddenly, when I watch and I see the whole figure of a heart, instead of being there in that black and white book looking very, very uninteresting, it comes alive right in front of my face and I see all the intricate workings of the heart. So, so saving time, saving the teacher may go blue in the face trying to make the child explain what a heart looks like, how it functions. Some children may have their own ideas about it, but for sure, of course, you have your YouTube and you have your digital photographs which can be shown. But when the child sees it in reality himself, a digital reality through augmented and virtual reality, it's a different ballgame altogether. So and it saves the, not only saves the teacher's energy, but it enhances the interest quotient of a child while learning. So definitely it has made the teaching learning scenario much more interesting and less cumbersome. Personalized learning has come in, and it's so interesting to know that even a child who's got special needs can use these digital spaces so effectively. Now, take for example, if it's a child who's suffering from dyslexia, he would be sitting for hours together trying to read through a text which makes no sense to him because of the way he sees things is very differently the way we see things. So, but imagine if that same text goes from text to speech and he's able to hear what he's trying to read. The learning would be phenomenal and it would save so much of, again, time and energy for that child who is struggling to do it. Similarly, if the child has got low vision, again, it is so helpful. So these spaces are like amazing and definitely adding on to so much, giving so much more value to education, making it accessible to all. Um, Similarly, and Naman has already spoken about how with the ERP solutions, the other side, the admin side, is also saving so much of time in doing their plannings. Extensive plannings can happen in a shorter time limit with uh, fewer resources to be used. The resources can be used more effectively, and time is a huge resource. So if you're able to pull out the data you require within a matter of minutes, it definitely eases the burden of working and makes you more effective. So today, through the digital tools that we have, a teacher, the head of a school, or the even a teacher can pick out, draw out the working of a child's performance over the years' time within minutes, and it's like you have the graph in front of you, whether when and how the kid has been going up or going down, a class's graph, a teacher's graph. So we exactly know where are the pain points, where are the children struggling, which are the kids who need to be more focused upon. Maybe they need some differential learning, teaching. Maybe they need some differential assessments. So all that is visible, and it's thanks to the digitalization of education and of data that is happening. So it's like I think it's phenomenal. So I was visiting a school in one of the metros, and like I was amazed to see there's real time monitoring happening for the parents. Like the parent sitting at home will know when my child has walked in from the classroom and gone to the washroom. And I said, wow, that's the light of monitoring and fear and uncertainty. But then we do have parents like that who may have had some kind of a negative experience which may have happened in their circle of family and friends, and they feel reassured with this kind of technology at hand. So we have all kinds of stuff which is rolling in. So yeah, I think. we are in for some good and very interesting times. We are already existing in one, and things should get even more interesting and better as we go ahead in time.
Yep. Thank you so much, ma'am. I think the most interesting perspective I took away from that is that for educators, and whenever I speak to them, it's the biggest burden for them is to sparking that curiosity and excitement in children, because you're putting your heart and soul into education, and that receptiveness from children really is what keeps you going. So it's wonderful to know that impact is also not left behind, along with on all the the data aggregation, information at your fingertips, communication with parents. So really good to hear this thought, and I hope the folks in attendance are taking away some really good takeaways. And on that point of parent engagement and communication, I would sort of want to go ahead to Dr. Deep Khare, sir. Sir, what I wanted to understand is, how can schools improve communications and engagement using digitization?
Of course, I remember the days when to send any information to parent, we used to use slips of papers to be given to child. Our youngest ones can't carry those slips, and it was a wonderfully difficult job used to be done. Now you have a WhatsApp, which thanks to Corona, we started using it blindly. Now we are trying to come back from it, and it's not happening that easily. The ERP which we have is very, very sophisticated and is doing a great communication. Parent can send mails to us like anything. We have their own platform where they can communicate with us. The communication is multifold. A parent can reach to the office, to the class teacher, to the sports teacher, to the principal, to the coordinator, to everybody, which was not possible. One information, if I want to say, like we have children there on 14th, I think we all have, and we took a decision that the children will come in their color clothes, that is not the school uniform. Now, how to inform? One message, the whole world knows. Now, think about the same thing if we do without digitization of the city of the country, then it doesn't work out altogether. And one very important thing, when a parent visit me in the school, I have to just type the number of the child. All right. I on screen I have the picture of the parents, so I know whom I'm handling to. If the picture doesn't match, I have to check is it the guardian of the parent or the child. Then I have a whole record of the child that how he has been faring in the last few exams, maybe few years. Then what he has done well in different kind of games and CCA. Then I can speak to parent confidently. I can understand their perspective of visiting school. So the time saving is too much. The way we interact with each other is very, very strong. So this is all because of digitalization, that now we have everything on our fingertips. I just type one number and I'm knowing the whole history of the child. In spite of we have in schools more than 2,000 kids, but we behave as if we know everyone inside out. That gives a lot of confidence to us and to the parent as well. And I think this is thanks to ERPs and whatnot we have. But as even if the question is about communication with parent, but the biggest communication is required with the children. And as these systems have made us very, very, comfortable to speak to children about their performances, their participation, their achievements, that is the biggest and a very important thing. I think information sharing is not only, would say, communication. We as teachers or schools have a bigger job to communicate with the children for their learning outcomes, why they come to school. I think that is the biggest bridge which has come up as digitization. I'm again speak about this, that the way I used to teach physics when I started. I remember in my class first time in Ajmer, in my school, I got a 29 inches TV, and by that time we had in the world the handy cams. So to teach physics, like I want to show a thermometer to children. I have asked one of my students hold the handycam onto the thermometer. Let children see the big 29 inches TV. TV this much thick. Okay. So now each child is looking at the same thermometer, a real life thing. He's not looking at a picture of thermometer. He's looking at a real life thermometer. And then I ask, what is the reading, my dear? So now they all are working on a real thing. It's a real experiment going on. And they all can see one thing. I replaced thermometer by one calipers or screw gauge and whatnot. So that I remember, I'm talking about 20, 22, 23 years earlier altogether. Today, the world is full of all information. I used to teach motors and dynamos and so many things. These digital things has made me to teach it so well. But again, one thing which I wanted to put across, and something not, I think, very nice I'm saying. If we use these wonders of digital content and digitization, again to prepare children for some question and answers. If you again are providing help in again rote learning kind of thing, we are failing drastically. What I see at times, this whole media or this whole resources has been used to do same similar thing which was being done earlier. So we are missing out. We're not leveraging the whole biggest benefit. The child has to understand. He has to conceptualize. He has to become good enough to think and apply. You see, I look for a dream world where my children are finding what suits them, what make them understand. They progress at their own pace. They're not being shown something by the teacher in the class. They figure out what I have to watch and what I have to find. And this is where the major job of teacher has to play. The content we get, the content we are provided by one company is not the end of the world. The child should know what I want to watch and what make me. Like ma'am have given an example that one child is not able to see well. He should be listening it. But that doesn't suit other children. So the differential learning can be a great way handled by these kind of things. But again and again, the digitization should go to children first. It should not aim to make life of principal easy. It should make the purpose of education right. We should have a very important aspect that this will make children understand the concepts. They will learn for life. We should not use these amazing resources to again get the marks and to pass them. This is what my very, very serious objection or what observation is there, that I find still kids are busy to pass the time or to prepare something just to pass the exam. That is not the purpose of schooling. The purpose of schooling is they're ready for the life. I remember I was in Lawrence Lovedale, and that was that time Olympics were going on. And I had a physics class, a test was due. I said, if you all get average 60% marks, I will show you video of all 8 gold medalists Michael Phelps has won. And I downloaded that video of whole 8 gold medalists in that Olympics, and I showed them once they all get average of 60% marks in physics. So this is how you use this content. I was not showing them any video of physics, but I motivated them to do something extraordinary. Because in boarding school, you can't have access to these wonders. And I'm talking about 15 years back at least. So I'm very, very positive the way the access of resources is coming to people. But my only doubt is, for what purpose are we using it? Are we only making it our life easy? No. Our life should be tough because we have a tougher task in hand to make children employable, independent, confident. I can list out the whole SDGs. I'm not very keen to know the name. I want to have people who have common sense. I find people, I teach physics just to create common sense. All my 30 years I taught physics to create common sense. The children should be having common sense. Everything will fall in line. But we are busy teaching critical thinking. Don't mind, let me go a little more. If a child is being prescribed question and answers, he is not solving questions, he is preparing answers. Somebody gave him question answer both. He is busy preparing those answers. He is not solving problems. Then you think he'll be having a skill of problem solving? He will not. He need all the question in exam which answer has been provided to him. Now we do this digitally or on paper or on a board. Idea is same. So I'm not very keen that a teacher used to dictate answers. Now he's sending a WhatsApp of the written answer. The idea is not of this basically. Idea is he should be empowered to find answers. We talk about research. Which research we talk about? Children are not searching answers in the books. They read notebooks. They don't read books. So my whole setup for this whole webinar, I want to just share one thought that it is very important that any resource, can be a book or text or notebook or that of this digital content, should have very clear purpose behind it. That for what you want to intend to use it basically. So that is what I was thinking. It's very true. The whole life has become very easy by this digitization. You want to book a ticket to a restaurant, to anything. You want to go call a Uber or Ola. Life is very easy. But that was not the purpose of ARPs in the school. We have some other agenda. We have some bigger task in hand. So I want to keep that task as in the front. Rest is all secondary. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. I think you have delivered the most important sentence of this webinar, that an educator's life is going to be difficult because you have the most difficult job of shaping, shaping the future of these young kids. I think what I also took away from that is, while the digitization is going to help save time, save effort, we should take that time and dedicate it further into improving the children. I think that's pretty amazing. I think with that we'll move on to the next set of couple of questions, where I would like perspectives from each of you. We'll start with Naman sir.
Mr.
So
Rahul,
yes,
Naman
yes.
has raised his hand twice. If you can allow him to speak
Oh,
something,
sorry, I think I missed that,
it
missed
is
that out.
Thank you.
it is
Naman,
very
anyways,
important.
we're coming to you, so
Thank
please
you.
go ahead.
So after hearing Urvashi ma'am and Khare sir's dispositions, I just want to raise two red flags, and those are for people like Rahul at Teachmint to solve when they are pitching their digital solutions to schools. And one is easily tackled, and the other not so easily tackled. So I'll start with the easier one. That is the surveillance problem, because you have so much digital data flowing through the fiber optics of your campus. You can peek into every class, be a fly on the wall next to every teacher's office, and also see where a student is present at a time and who was present next to that student at that moment. So it creates a dilemma, right? Just because you can, where do you stop yourself from doing something, right? So if you recall, there was this whole herd of mobile phones which have that automatic recording feature. Now the law doesn't permit you to record without letting the other person know, but I'm sure a ton of calls around the country are being recorded without anybody knowing. Now you may say कि अगर आपने गलत बोला record हो रहा है तो आपकी fault है, I can use it against you or whatever. But I think surveillance makes us too dependent on what is made available to us and what is not. So, for example, before these cameras existed, discipline was still maintained in schools. Now, suddenly, because of cameras, if a camera is not present in a classroom and some incident happens, so the first thing is we should have more cameras. It's not why students feel the need to bully a fellow student, or why students feel the need to sort of take out their frustration on classmates, on teachers, on furniture present in the classroom. So we have to see there's this surveillance problem that digitization brings in, and sort of multiplies it. And also sir was talking about communication with parents, etc. It takes away time for deliberation. Just because I can quickly get in touch with the student's parent, I may not pause to think whether that is the best way to handle the situation or not. So these are the easier issues that I think with general awareness we can solve. The bigger concern is, all these tech solutions are slowly moving towards machine learning, AI, right? Because AI is the buzzword to sell software of the 21st century. So you say, with AI, we will tell you what students are actually learning with concepts and what students aren't. With AI, we will tell you what teachers are doing a good job and what teachers are not. So, as school administrators, as principals, and heads of various departments, we don't really understand how those algorithms were built, right? So that algorithm can have a particular bias in its core, right, by the programmer who built it. So often we become blind to reality just because my ERP, like my dashboard, says that this is the best performing student or the best performing teacher, and this student needs help. I may miss out on softer factors that are very challenging to quantify, very challenging to measure, और वो मैं soft factors miss करके I arrive at a solution, or I take decisions based on false impressions created by the particular algorithm. So I think ethics of how you are programming these features, ethics of machine learning, ethics in quantifying a data. How do you quantify a good student? It's not just their mark sheets. So then the question comes, जो assessment आपने digitize तो कर दिया, but उस assessment की question quality क्या थी? That is a very humane thing to measure and not easily quantified. So I feel like software service providers really can differentiate themselves if they solve these kind of problems. Right now, it's a race to add as many features as possible. LMS भी है, ERP भी, CRM भी है. We have 15 modules, बस भी track हो जाएगी, class में camera का भी input आ जाएगा, automatic light on off, सब कुछ कर लोगे आप. But these are very operational heavy things, like ठीक है, you're substituting manual labor, you're making it more efficient, but you're not asking the greater questions, you're not solving the bigger problem where digitization can truly help. So
Yeah,
that is my request to
yeah,
Teachment and Rahul, that start looking at that aspect of digitization. These are the two red flags I wanted to bring to the panel from
Well,
my
actually,
side.
I cannot agree more. I think that's a question that we are debating so often in our team that हाँ यार ये चार features बना देंगे, but what will really move the needle for schools, right? What will really take them to a level where they feel that okay, this is business magic, this is helping us do our job better. We sort of, in fact, the sort of mission statement that Teachment operates with is expanding the potential of education. And the one thing sort of I have sort of felt from that is if we can allow educators to with the right set of tools, right? Because ultimately no one can deliberate better than you, right? I mean, no amount of AI, no amount of tech can replace the years and years of experience, the emotional quotient of knowing how to tackle a child, or of knowing how to spark curiosity in a child's mind. That very very. I mean, I'm blown away by that thought. Deep sir, you had raised your hand. Please go ahead.
You see, nothing comes free of cost. This ease of communication, data handling, and getting results very fast has a downside also. The number of parents visiting school is reduced. The one-to-one communication is reduced to quite an extent. If a child is doing pretty well, parents will feel what is the need. He is doing very well. Whereas we are sharing the result only of his academics. There's a lot to share and lot to talk. In fact, parents are the best feedback one school can have. All right, and the school can also share the philosophy, the idea, the endeavor of the school to the parent when we talk one to one. So this is what is also on the downside. But naturally, when we have a larger number of children, we feel oh, it's okay, चलो हमारा time बच रहा है. But time बच किसके लिए रहा है? The whole idea is to communicate with the society. So what we are gaining is having its downside also. But naturally, we have to live with time. No school in today's time can say that we don't have internet connection. The life will stop altogether. So what I'm trying to say that we should have all these wonders, but we should also never leave out the most important aspect, knowledge as well as our endeavor. That I want to meet as many as parents possible. Physically, I would like to have you in my office, or I'll come to you somehow in one way or other. That is also I wanted to point out. And Naman, you are excellent the way you analyze things, and I think Uruchi ma'am and we both will say that you are doing what we would have taken half an hour, so you are finishing in 5 minutes. That is what is new generation.
Thank you,
And
sir.
Rahul, this is how it works out. You see,
No,
what we learned
absolutely.
in 30 years, he is going to learn in 5 years. And now the younger one and the younger brother of Naman will learn in 3 years. So the school should learn to pace with them. And a teacher with 30 years cannot be in pace if he is not digitizing himself. Because they know what suits them. The language has changed of communication. Okay, but the emotion, the connect has not changed. If you ask
So
me, I'm teaching physics for 30 years, the learning outcomes are same. The way we reach to them has changed because the children are looking forward not in books, they want a video of it. They want a
yeah.
good quality HD video. They want a great quality sound because the rest of all world is that time. It doesn't interest them if you just keep on showing them something very fade picture. So we have to equip ourselves to handle the crowd we're handling. But
Yeah.
the basics, nuances of teaching, for me at least, have not changed. Policy have changed, probably education. Education has not changed. This is what I personally feel. Thank you.
So while you are praising the learning curve and speed of the younger generation, I have to say that we are able to do that only because we are taking the takeaways from you guys, because you had to do things on the fly. I mean, there was no internet to Google a result before, right? I mean, when we have conversations with you, it's suddenly we are getting the wisdom of years and years in the industry in a nutshell. So I don't think that would have been possible without what you guys have built over the years. So full marks there, sir. Urvashi ma'am, coming to you, I think one of the things that has happened right now is we have somehow actually covered the question that I was going to ask next, which is like, will digitization help in quicker and smarter decision making? And we have seen both perspective already. So over to you, Urvashi ma'am.
See, yes, I think a lot has already been spoken on this. What I wanted to say is connected to this only. At the end of the day, no matter what kind of an AI, no matter what kind of an algorithm, no matter what kind of tools you have, what really matters is who is welding those tools, who is using those tools, and for whom the tools are being used. We are very clear about for what we are using the tool. We are very clear about for whom we are using the tool. But It matters who is using the tool. That is where everything boils down to what Naman has said, what Deep Sir has said. There is a question in the question box also about the stress coming in with the digitization. Everything boils down on who is using and how. It's like you have nuclear energy as a power. Now, it's up to you. Are you using it to make advances in the medical field, or are you using it to make more nuclear weapons? It's absolutely up to us how we use it. So, the human factor can never be discounted for. It is only the human factor which can go and beat what Naman calls the algorithms and what they are, what, because even today we are seeing only what the digital world is making us see, whether it is on the social media platform, whether it is on the media platform, no matter where, all my choices are being affected by the algorithms which are floating around us. So it is definitely a very worrying trend. But then, yet again, also including they're saying that how to ensure students don't misuse the data. As I said, you and coming to what we do with the data we get, it's absolutely how judicious we are, how careful we are, and never to forget that it is a very thin line we walk on when we talk in terms of ethics and when we talk in terms of our personal spaces and our our privacy. So in this world today, I don't think anybody has any kind of a personal life. I mean, you're there all over, you're leaving your digital footprints everywhere, and anybody can find out anything about you as of now. So you really don't have much of a private life left. So yes, it all depends on us how judicious we are in the use of technology which has been given to us. And stress, again, can only be alleviated if we are better trained, not only in how to wield these tools, but in also as to where not to wield these tools. So has to be, I think, a personal decision which one will have to take at every point of time, that where the digital factors, I have to draw a line and let the human part come in. So uh, anything new that comes in will always have its sets of teething problems. And I think we are resisting in a world which is still trying to swim and find its way in this digitalization, great digital revolution which is happening around us. So we are the ones who are facing all these teething problems, whether we call it the fine balance between ethics, morality, use of digital world, time factor. But I'm very hopeful that the coming generation would be far more adept of handling these situations. So those teething problems would have been over, and we would be in a more comfortable space in lot of manners.
Great. Thank you so much, ma'am, for the perspective. So ultimately, the tools will give you data, the algorithms will surface insights which would have otherwise been ignored, but it's up to educators around how they use it. And for that, better awareness, more adoption is quite important. Very well summarized, ma'am. In the interest of time, we have 15 more minutes. I want to take a couple of audience questions as well. But one of the questions I think we have touched upon a little bit when Deep sir mentioned about the digital heart that sort of he saw a few years ago, like many years ago, and then the thermometer. Uh, I want to go to Naman sir once because the question is around the benefits of using learning management system and digital repositories. The specific angle I want to get, Naman sir, is higher education institutes have been quite better at this. Like even when I was studying at IIT Bombay, we had Moodle, which really helped us sort of be on top of assignments. And so, sir, please give a perspective on how to best use LMS. There's also actually an angle in the audience question from Sheetal Achoriwala that while digitization is enhancing the learning process, but students are getting into other unwanted habits. I think the reference is to like mobile YouTube and stuff like that. So I believe that LMS can actually play that angle really well, where there can be a more controlled environment. But sir, over to you.
Thank you, Rahul, for that question. And I think I'll just quickly touch upon what Sheetal ma'am's question is here. So I think most software decks, most publicly available media consumption sources do allow for parental control, and it's only about awareness and taking time out to set those things up. Take help from somebody who knows how to do it. maybe schools should actually do a workshop with parents where they engage with parents on how to define those limits, how to control the digital environment that your child is spending a lot of time in. So solution for that already exists. It's more about awareness and actually executing that. Now, how to generally use learning management platform systems to drive better student learning outcomes. I'll focus on learning outcomes only. And you correctly mentioned higher education has been an early adopter of this space, and I'm glad you mentioned Moodle. But because if Moodle becomes very popular in the K-12 space, it can take away bread and butter from a lot of software companies. so, so that's a sly remark from my side just to keep things light. But besides this, I think LMS content is much more important than what features an LMS has. So in higher education, NPTEL, various IITs and universities have been on top of the game for the last decade to curate the highest level of content for various programs that these universities offer. And in K-12, I see most of that exercise not being done by schools themselves. Rather, service providers, I shall not name them, but service providers have taken on that mantle that we will provide the digital content, we will provide those digital resources to be consumed, and you can use them as part of your lessons, etc. However, I think the success that higher education has seen with LMS platforms is simply because they were the ones creating and hosting that content themselves. They had complete control over it. Now, for example, I think Deep sir also touched upon this issue. If you truly understand Google's algorithm, you can make half the world believe that the sun rises in the west, right? So
Absolutely.
it's just an understanding of how do you put that up, how do you optimize for SEOs, and how do you drive that, right? And we've seen in various parts of the world where information slash misinformation is often sort of tampered with. And when private entities come into the foray of educating our children and showcasing what a heart looks like, I would take it with a pinch of salt. As a teacher, as an educator, if I'm part of the process of that digital content creation, then great. I can ensure that there's no misrepresentation of what we are trying to teach. However, a lot of this content, because of unavailability of teachers or limitations on their abilities to create this content, I feel companies are putting out various kinds of 3D content that are so far from the truth that it boggles the mind. And that sort of makes me more wary, because I'd rather just hear a narration about uh, what different teeth in my mouth are used for than see a 3D representation which is not correct. So, and I've already seen that at one of the top schools in the country. They showed us, how what a jaw is, what the various teeth, molars, and canines are used for, and some of it was absolutely wrong. And it was being used because that was the best the school had at the time. So, I think success with LMS is inevitable, but teachers have to become a part of that content creation. We cannot leave it to uh, big edtechs to create that content for us.
That's where again the judiciousness, your personal judiciousness comes into play.
Exactly. Who's wielding the tool, right? So
Yeah.
we need to become stakeholders in that whole thing. That uh, recently I put out a request to one of these tech providers. They were pitching an LMS. I said, I want your LMS, I don't want your content. And they said, no sir, but it comes free. I said, it's free, but I don't want it. You can feed me free poison, I will not take it, right?
Correct.
So just give me the software deck. You are the experts on building that. Let me build the content myself.
Correct.
So I think those kind of requests need to start coming in from most schools. We are more than capable of creating these things. You need to hire a couple of interns who can create those digital maps and whatnot. So get your teams involved. Have a digital extension of your teaching arm. Keep a day in the week where they are free from classes, where they're just sort of designing digital workflows. So I'll leave it
Great.
at that in the interest of
Great.
time.
Deep sir, you raised your hand. I
Yeah,
also want to actually address one of the questions
yeah,
from the Q&A, talking about mental health behavior of student and how can digitization help there. So please put your point, but also address this question, because I think it's very well raised question from Orkadas. Uh, Go ahead,
yeah.
sir.
I have a very strong take on it. You see, somehow in the name of schooling on the web because of the corona time, it has been all the way entirely responsible to the school that children have gone haywire. It's not the case. Let me ask everybody that before this pandemic started, kids were equally good at all interneting and doing whatnot. It's not that school have taught them all these things. This is one of the very important argument I want to give all the time. But at the same time, as Nama was pointing out, that the quality of the content is always doubtful. And the same goes with me. I think till today, I am not very satisfied with most of the content I have seen through. The reason is something very important. One is the righteousness of the content, which he very categorically spoke about it. I have one more issue. Companies are busy to provide the content which is much more than the required for a given class. In the name of extra, from where this stress comes to children. If any school is sticking to NCRT books, life is very, very easy. But if we have a content or some book which are written by anybody with a name as per NCRT syllabus, it's not the right thing. We end up teaching too much to a child in lower classes. He decides, okay, I better cram it off. There is no point trying to understand it. Same goes for digital content. So all the companies should be very, very careful that what are you trying to ask a child to prepare for. This is the bigger and the most important reason of all the stress I can see all around. If a child knows how to only do this much and it's doable, we're asking him to run 5 kilometers who can't run 1 kilometer. This is not extra in it. At the due time, he'll be very well prepared to take that also. There's no hurry to get it done. I always give a very simple example. I take 30 seconds. One of my colleague went to US to teach, and he was once he come back after 3-4 years. He says, Mr. Khare, in I teach 6th standard there, and an 11-year-old child do not know table of two. I said, really? How it is happening? He said, fact of matter, they don't know table of two, but they only get the Nobel Prize, no? In my school, a class 3 child will know table of till 20. But is he able to know why I am being taught this table? How will they be used by me in my life? Is it going to convert into my life skill? Or how to just remember those tables? So that's the difference I'm trying to point out in my every possible talk, that there should be everything purposeful. We should not do because X school has done it, so I also have to do in my school. That doesn't work out. We should know exactly what is the demand and we should deliver that much only. So this is what I thought I will be able to say that on it.
Great, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Would you touch upon the aspect of mental health for students a little bit?
You see, as per my personal knowledge, because being a boarding school also,
Yeah.
kids are very strong people. We teacher at times parent, a small variation we count it as a mental illness. It's not the case. Kids are very, very strong. We have to support them. We have to understand them. I don't find a lot of mental problems all around. This is what my very, very strong feeling. Because of too much of awareness, at times we start tagging people that, oh, he is a depression, he is having anxiety. It's not like that. Today is webinar going on. I was anxious at age of 55. All right, I have done 100 webinars already. Should I go to a doctor to visit? My God, I was doing something like that before the webinar. It's not like that. So we should give them due time, and a lot can happen.
Yeah.
This is somehow it has happened in the last 2-3 years that everybody started talking about mental health. In my 2000 plus kids, I haven't found even a single child to whom after Corona we are handling on that side as such. To be very frank,
Right.
it's a happy going lucky lot. I'm telling you, they're enjoying their life. That's how it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, I think one of the experiences I'm having recently is seeing my nephew grow up, and one thing that has hit me hard is that how resilient kids are. I think the talent they have in forgetting, unlearning, and learning is pretty amazing. So I think it's about keeping them a positive mindset and just helping them through hard times, and they will come out well. Urvashi ma'am, I'm coming to you next. Quickly answering one of the questions, I think it's very important. I tackle this from a technology perspective. That will it be safe? Jayesh Regesar has asked, will it be safe in terms of radiation emitted when a lot of things are getting digitized? So radiation as an aspect of devices. I think everyone is using mobile phones and computers all across the world now. So, but digitization has nothing to do with radiation. I just suggest that please don't use poor brand phones and computers. Please invest in good brands, and this will not be a problem. Uh, Urvashi, I wanted to come to you, and again, there's, I think, a little bit of misconception in the audience where Kajal Sethi has asked why digitizing is must when online classes were not a success. And I want to stress there that we heard from all the panelists, and not a single time was online classes mentioned. I think, in fact, it was more highlighted that we need to have physical engagement and only use digitization to enhance the experience. So I will go around with closing thoughts along with this question, Urvashi ma'am. Please summarize again so that we leave this discussion with highlighting again what is digitization and what are the aspects we should keep in mind. We already heard the cautionary tales about using their own judiciousness of educators while handling digitization. But to close out, please let's highlight again, leave the top 2 or 3 advantages of digitization, and we'll go one by one. Over to you, Urvashi ma'am. Ma'am, you're muted. You have to unmute.
I think one must understand that digitization is basically another way forward. And when we talk of digitization, we need to understand that these are tools which are being provided to us to make our working more efficient and to save on time and to save on a lot of labor. Yes, at the moment, stress quotient is high with everybody who has entered the digital space, especially with teachers. They are under tremendous stress because suddenly they find their hands are too full and they need to do a lot. They are still trying to find that balance between paperwork and digital work. So it does become stressful, but it's a matter of time when, as I said, with time, we'll be able to find our own niche, our own way on how to use it. So, one, it is important to understand that it's a tool. It's important to know how and when to use the tool, when not to use the tool, when the human factor needs to come in. That nothing can beat the human factor, the judiciousness that a human being can use can never come through an AI. So that is a fine balance which needs to be kept in mind. And we need to move with all the positive aspects that the tool has to offer, being aware of the pitfalls, being absolutely aware of the pitfalls and not to fall into the trap, whether it is like giving too much of excess time in the digital world. This is up to, it's my personal choice whether I wish to give 4 hours or 5 hours or 8 hours. I need to know where to draw the line. I need to know where to draw the line when data is coming in front of me. I need to know when I need to go beyond the data and go into the real world to find out whether the data that is coming to me is actually a real data, or as Naman very rightly said, did that algorithm have a bias in it? That was a beautiful point, Naman. So I think
No,
that's something that we all need to really understand that. So it all depends on how we wield these tools and how effectively we use them. And for that, proper training is a must. If we do not get into the training space, then we are actually going to be putting ourselves into more trouble and more stress. And instead of good work, we'll end up just getting into one big mess, wherever it is. But we cannot discount the human factor at all. I think it is all the more important for us to know that I would still say that no matter what, a robot will never replace the human being, at least not in the classroom. So, this is what I would like to say.
Deep sir, please conclude with a couple of points around, specific practical example of how digitization can help.
you see, as a school, we should not force on teachers that you have to show this much for sure. Let the teacher know what is required to be shown to children. If the things can be made understood to a child without using a digital setup, it's not necessary. When we force a teacher, then he naturally gets bogged down with the whole thing. I have to teach also. On the board, I have to write, I have to correct copies also, then I have to show the content also. Similarly, for the companies who are sharing their content, they should be very, very careful that there should be very limited rightful content given to children. It should not be endless. If I am interested in space, that is my personal thing. That is nothing to do with my education as such. It's my personal interest and my passion. We cannot keep on letting everybody to read about space when you talk about skies, because we have easy to just leave a link, but this link is going to spend need time from the children and teacher both. So we should be very, very careful about it. And last but not the least, as I said, the purpose of whole thing should be to get over with the learning outcomes. not to prepare children for the examination alone. They should all fall in line automatically. This NEP, I am very, very hopeful that the way we conduct exam, things will change. We will not ask any more questions which can be prepared by rote learning. We
True.
to stop that. A lot has to be done in the assessment by the software companies, that you should ask questions which are only answered by experiences. You cannot
Competence.
ask. You see, I always give one example. What three vegetables Naman had last week? In place of asking, name three vegetables. All right, Naman, you are not eating these days, man. That's how it is. So you have to change the question. The child should, I have to answer with my experiences. How many of are asking, we want to get away from rote learning? Are you doing any attempt out of it? Still, there's a question of SST to be answered in 5, 6, 8 lines, half a page in class 4. The child has to cram it off only. Any digitization will not help there. We have to change the way we expect children to behave. I always say with one sentence that for me, education is something which brings changes in the life, in the behavior of a person. Not you can write it off. If I study hygienic food, my food should change. All right, not I can debate about a hygienic food and I can give an essay on it. No, 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 no. The whole idea of education is to bring change in the behavior of the people on daily basis, not for the next day of examination and then we forget everything. That is not something the motto behind it. Thank you.
I think Deep sir, whatever you have spoken also answers Ankit's question. I completely agree with Deep sir. I said, Ankit, you are asking, is it the content to go through an online platform? Or what is more important, or having an exposure to experiential learning? I think it's having exposure to experiential learning through various activities, which involves physical interaction. I think nothing
I'll,
can.
I want to say one sentence. All the attendees and all the people who are able to listen to us, please go through the learning outcomes before you go through the syllabus. All principals, all teachers, my hand folded request. Don't go through the syllabus. Go to the learning outcomes first. You don't have to
Correct.
do syllabus. You have to get them learning outcome. I see so many people are busy doing everything for syllabus. Why the syllabus has been made? There is a purpose behind it. Okay, we should know that. We are missing out on it. I wrote an article recently that we are busy with all pedagogy innovations. What for are we doing innovation? Do we know that? Do we know the why of education? We are worried about why, how of education, how to teach. Question is why to teach. Then you will get a right answer how to teach it. Probably. Thank you.
Naman, we started with you. We'll conclude with you. Please help tie up all of this together into the couple of highlights around how digitization can actually have a positive impact.
Yeah, now in this, I'd like to say ये tie up करने वाला, conclude करने वाला burden ना, we have much senior people than me with a lot more experience. I wish you had given this task to them. I'll try my best though. So I think with digitization, we have to recognize that it gives us speed and agility to perform as a school and as teachers. However, we must have foresight. We must use these tools judicially, and we must not look at them as easy substitutes for doing, real work with our students. So it's always better to take a student on an excursion to. We are from Jaipur, so Albert Hall Museum. But if you don't have those resources, you cannot do that. In that case, a video tour will suffice. So use technology, use digitization as a substitute only where the real experience cannot be shared with your students. Otherwise, it's better than to not give them that exposure at all. So it sort of bridges the gap between the haves and the have nots. So let's use our digitization tools and softwares very judiciously, but at the same time have a clear plan of action. What are you going to do with all the data points you collect? Have a discussion on the ethics of using those data points and collecting those data points in the first place, and then leverage it. Run hard and run fast into the upcoming sort of disruption in education. So thank you for that, and thank you for my fellow panelists. It was a great learning experience for me personally.
I think
All
all of
right. Thank you
us.
so much, Naman. We've had an enthralling discussion today. I think at the start of the session, Deep sir said that please pardon us, we'll speak from our hearts, and you guys have done just that. I think more than anything, we have talked about how digitization can have an impact. and also how we should focus on learning outcomes and the end impact, that is the goal of educators. And while we are using digitization to free up time to make life easier for us with on the click of a button, data aggregation, better communication, improved processes, we should take that time and invest it in really in improving child's education. And I think a lot of what I've heard today will go straight to my team on at Teachmint. And on that point, I would like to just quickly conclude with a little bit of self promotion, talking about Teachmint. Since we see a lot of synergies in the way that you want to build your school capabilities, and a lot of the folks in the audience would also want to. So Teachmint's flagship product, the integrated school platform, empowers every stakeholder of the school with a one-stop solution, which includes admin management capabilities, strengthening teaching learning infrastructure. I think we talked about that quite a lot, driving student engagement, and delivering better learning outcomes. We think that we have built a school-centric software solution with very high innovation, delight, and very powerful tools. And over in our journey, we have serviced over 10,000 plus schools. We have had over 1.5 crore plus users, teachers, students across 30 plus countries, in multiple Indian and foreign languages. So anyone in the audience would love to sort of have you check out our tool and give your feedback. I think today itself, the last 1 hour has been amazing. That can transform the way we are building forward. Thank you so much again for all the panelists, Mahima and the Scoonews team. Over to you guys.
It
Thank
was
you,
lovely
Rahul.
interaction, dear.
That was an interesting discussion, and I'd like to thank Teachment for making it possible. I'm also very thankful to Urvashi ma'am, Dr. Deep Khare sir, and Naman Kandoi sir for joining this discussion and making this, Saturday evening so informative and interesting. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.